In the 2023 NFL Draft, GM Brad Holmes got a lot of flack for some of his draft day decisions. However, though, in yesterday's victory against the Atlanta Falcons, a lot of those rookies that he drafted stepped up in a big way to secure the win for the Lions. We're going to talk about it in today's episode, folks, so stay tuned.
It started with an owner who had a last name fans despised, hiring a coach that the experts thought was crazy,
But I got a plan, I swear to you.
who traded for a QB that was said to be washed up. They said the Detroit Lions would never amount to anything, that it would always be the same old Lions. But this team, our team, has a new identity, defined and expressed by the crazy head coach,
Doesn't matter if you have one ass cheek and three toes, I will beat your ass.
led by the QB that nobody thought was good. Motor City Mania is in full swing and ready to start. So join the show and be prepared for kneecap biting, because Motor City Mania starts right now.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to yet another episode of MCM, Motor City Mania. I'm your host, David T. Pike, and we're diving in right now. As always, folks, I just want to thank you all for coming back to the show. Welcome back. Thank you all for your support. Thank you all for your patience. Thank you all for your view. I highly encourage y'all, please, to subscribe to the channel. And again, with having said that, God bless. Let's get into today's content. So, here's the thing, folks. I've been following the Lions now for as long as I've been alive, almost. I've been a fan since I was 6 years old. I've been following the Lions religiously every year. I started being a podcaster 2 years ago. So when it comes to the Lions, I'm pretty well knowledgeable about this whole thing. But I can say this right now with absolute certainty. When it comes to GM Brad Holmes, the guy is an absolute virtuoso. He is a genius. He is a maestro when it comes to draft day. He knows how to manipulate the draft to do what he wants it to do. There's no debate about this. If you want to talk about draft master, that's Brad Holmes. He is the master of the draft. And the thing about it is that if you take a look at Brad Holmes' first 2 years as the GM of the Detroit Lions, almost nobody, whether it was analysts, whether it was fans, anybody, questioned Brad Holmes' decision-making, because virtually every decision most people agreed with. But last year, the 2023 NFL Draft that just ended in April of this year, not the same kind of story. In fact, there were a lot of critics that had problems with some of the decisions that the Lions had, either at draft night or in the subsequent months that followed. And y'all know what I'm talking about here. It was whether it was Jamir Gibbs, which was more of a recent criticism, whether it was Jack Campbell, which was a lot of draft night criticism, and some of it was on Sam LaPorta because of previous draft experiences that had nothing to do with freaking Brad Holmes. But here's what I find particularly funny about this whole thing. If we go back to the preseason, we already had seen a lot of glimpses, a lot of flashes from some of these rookies that already were giving us a very good indication, a very good precursor, if you will, of what we could expect once they started becoming full-time contributors. And they have not disappointed. They have not disappointed at all. Now, to be fair, some Lions fans have been somewhat impatient with production from said rookies, but again, you have to understand how being a rookie is. Unless you are the full-time fledged starter, you're going to still have to kind of earn your stripes before you can really start playing full-on. And that is usually reserved for only a couple of rookies right out the gate. Unless you're a top 5 pick, you're still going to have to earn your stripes a little bit. You're still going to have to wait a little bit before you can start getting the full workload, so to speak. But here's what I can absolutely say from yesterday's victory over the Atlanta Falcons. We don't win that game without those rookies. Period. Absolutely, period. End of discussion. There is no debate on this. The rookies yesterday, particularly our top 4 rookies, without them, we don't win. There's no way around that. There's no way to sugarcoat it. There's no way to cut it some other way. There is no other possibility you can come up with to say, yeah, the Lions could have still won that game without those rookies. No chance. No chance in this life or the next. Because those rookies made the massive difference. They had a massive internal and just absolutely integral part of the impact in our ability to win against the Falcons. And I'm going to talk about it in today's episode here really quickly. But let's just take a look at it for what it's worth. Let's go down the 4 rookies here and explain the criticism that was received and what they did yesterday. Let's take a look at Jamir Gibbs. When the Lions drafted Jamir Gibbs, there necessarily wasn't a whole lot of criticism for most people. People were looking at Jamir Gibbs and saying, hey, you know what? This guy is really explosive. He's going to be a decent back. The main criticism on draft night was that, again, a lot of people thought that Gibbs was drafted too high because they're like, hey, you could have gotten him later in the first round, maybe even the top of the second round. But what we found out even during draft night and shortly thereafter is that if the Lions hadn't grabbed him at number 12, there were going to be a lot of other teams right behind them that were definitely going to grab him. So that right there kind of disproved the whole thought process that Gibbs was drafted way too high. He was drafted right around where a lot of people thought he should have been drafted or would have drafted him. The Lions just kind of played the how should I say it again, Brad Holmes being what he is, he realized he could trade back and he could still potentially get Jamir Gibbs. It was a bit of a gamble, but again, that's part of the draft process, taking calculated risks, calculated gambles, and still winning, which is something that Brad Holmes, as I said, has been a master of. But here's the funny thing, is that, okay, you get past the initial criticism of, okay, maybe the Lions drafted Jamir Gibbs too high. Well, then we start getting into the first couple games of the season, and a lot of Lions fans are saying, oh my Lord, where's this Jamir Gibbs kid? Why can we not get him the ball? Why is he not putting up the stats that we thought he was going to put up? Take a look at Bijan Robinson. The freaking Falcons drafted him a little bit higher, and he's going off all over people. He's already got 180 yards. He's looking the part. He's getting over 6 an average a pop every time he runs the ball. Why can't Gibbs do that? So what was part of the narrative with yesterday's game? The narrative was, which rookie running back has the better game? Is it going to be Jamir Gibbs or is it going to be Bijan Robinson? And here's the funny thing. I guarantee you this. If you'd have asked almost anybody in the country, I would be willing to say 80 to 85% probably were going to say the freaking Falcons because there was no indication that the Falcons were not going to have a good game. They run the ball to death. They run it religiously. It's their bread and butter. You figured that the Falcons were going to get at least something out of their run game. But as I said in my previous episode today, I'll put the link to that right back up at the top, the freaking Detroit Lions defense absolutely annihilated and shut down the Falcons offense. Not just the rushing component, the whole damn offense virtually. And when you take a look at the comparison between the two running backs, it's not even comparable. You have Jamir Gibbs, who rushed the ball for 17 times, had 80 yards at 4.7 a pop. That's a respectable day. That is a good day running the ball. Whereas when you flip over on the opposite side to Bijan Robinson, he had 10 carries for 33 yards for 3.3 an average a rush. That's not good. Now, is that necessarily all Bijan Robinson's fault? No, it's not. That's a component that is pretty much built upon the fact that the Falcons defense was not able to get stops when it was critical, whether it was Jared Goff's rushing touchdown or his throw to Sam LaPorta for 45 yards. Those plays made a huge difference. Or the fact that their kicker missed a field goal, or the fact that Desmond Ridder can't complete passes deeper than 10 yards. The point of the matter is that as the game went on, Bijan got less and less opportunities to add to his stat line, and it became more of a passing game, which is something the Falcons don't do very well. Hence the reason why the Falcons lost. So my whole point here is this. The rookie that a lot of people thought was not going to be able to stack up to his counterpart in the first round, not only stacked up rather well, he outperformed him by double. So that's the first thing I wanted to point out here. Now let's take a look at the second rookie on my list. Tight end Sam LaPorta. I can tell you this right now. When we drafted Sam LaPorta, even though he was in the second round, I will say this with absolute conviction. There were a lot of Lions fans that were absolutely peeved because they were like, why are we drafting another tight end? Because all they thought about when we drafted a tight end high was the same history we had with tight ends over the last, freaking 8-9 years with Brandon Pettigrew, with Eric Ebron, also affectionately known to some people as Eric Ebum. And then you also have T.J. Hawkinson, who we just drafted a couple of years ago in the first round, and he's no longer on the team either anymore. He's with the Vikings. So as soon as we drafted Sam LaPorta, the very first thought that came to everyone's freaking mind almost was another tight end. We're going to draft another tight end with a high draft pick. We can't seem to learn. But yeah, I can tell you this right now. Sam LaPorta has been more consistent and has gotten better and better every single week, more so than Hawkinson ever did when he was here with the Lions. You go back to Hawkinson's rookie year. The game against the Cardinals is the only game that I can remember where he had almost any noteworthiness in that season. And that was because he went off for 115, 120 yards or something like that. You go back to the rest of that rookie year, he disappears. But yet, you take a look at Sam LaPorta. Through the first 3 games, every single game, he's getting several catches. He's being very consistent as a blocker and as a receiving threat, and he gets better and better and better every single day, every single game. And not only has he gotten better, he's become a much more integral part of the offense. I mean, when you go and you have 8 receptions for 84 yards, 11.3 an average a catch, and a touchdown, and that touchdown's on a 45-yard bomb from Jared Goff, I would say you're a pretty integral part of this offense. Because at that point now, Jared Goff has shown that he trusts you. He's willing to throw the ball to you. He's willing to invest in you. Which is kind of funny, because think about it here. Who are the guys that get the most passes from Jared Goff? A 4th-round wide receiver in Amon-Ra St. Brown that's developed, chemistry and trust with Jared Goff. Josh Reynolds, who is at best an average to an above-average receiver, but has had a lot of chemistry and trust built with Jared Goff over the years. A wide receiver that's 5'9", 5'10" at best, who is a former special teams ace that Jared Goff loves to go to. And a rookie tight end. Notice the only wide receiver I didn't mention is the most savvy, most veteran wide receiver of that whole group. That's Marvin Jones. Marvin Jones has disappeared completely from the first week where he had 2 catches and 4 drops. Since then, I don't think an announcer has called his name for anything since then, and he's been in the starting lineup for the last 2 weeks. And it's like, Jared Goff is willing to throw to a former special teams ace, a 4th-round draft pick who's now become a top 10 wide receiver, and a journeyman wide receiver that's above average, and a rookie tight end, but he's not willing to throw it to Marvin Jones all that much. That's pretty telling in my opinion. And it shows the ability of Sam LaPorta to consistently get better and better and better, and that consistency from week to week. So that's something that has been an impressive thing about Sam LaPorta. And again, without Sam LaPorta, we probably don't win that game, because that touchdown pass that Jared Goff had broke the game wide open. After that, the Lions had all the momentum on their side virtually for the rest of the game. Now, the next guy to talk about, and I know a lot of Lions fans are absolutely in love with this guy. I am too. It's safety Brian Branch. I'm saying it right now. And I know a lot of other people have been saying it. I've been saying it too, but I am re-emphasizing it here. Brian Branch was the damn steal of the draft. I have no idea how Brian Branch fell all the way down to pick 45 or whatever the Thunder it was, but somehow a first-round talent safety, the best safety in the draft class, falls in our lap to pick number 45. We trade up to get him, and take a look at the damage that this dude has been able to do in just three games in the NFL. He gets a pick 6 his very first week in the NFL, which clearly shifts momentum in our game against the Chiefs, and clearly without that, we don't win. Then you take a look at his damage that he did against the freaking Falcons yesterday. He has 11 tackles. All of them are solo, and he absolutely lays the boom on freaking Bijan Robinson and has the most epic comeback when asked about it. He's like, I don't give an F about it. I'll take the penalty. That is the most epic freaking response I can think of when you're talking about the fact that he laid the boom and he showed, right, this is not the same old Lions. We're going to sock you in the mouth, and as Dan Campbell would like to say, doesn't matter if you have 1 ass cheek and 3 toes, I will beat your ass. That was the persona that hit put out there. We are a tough, gritty team. We do not care who you are. We are going to sock you in the mouth. It's going to be a long damn day when you play us. Because when you have 11 tackles, all of them solo, you have 3 tackles for loss and 2 passes defended, you're doing your job as a safety. You're not just doing your job, you are exceeding your job requirement, and you are playing exemplary, complementary football. That is what Brian Branch brings to the table. Now, I'm going to say this right now. When we drafted Brian Branch, there was no criticism, even at the time or afterwards, because we realized what kind of a player he was. But I don't think anybody thought he was going to be this good, this fast. So, that right there, again, massive impact. Without Brian Branch, this game has a completely different makeup to it. And again, we might not win it because that was how crucial Brian Branch was. He led the team in defensive tackles. As a safety, he led the team in defensive tackles. That does not happen very often. And it's not like he was tackling in coverage. He was just coming up and laying the boom on people. So again, Brian Branch, love this kid. Already vastly invested in him. I cannot wait to see what this guy does for the rest of his career. And if I think about it, he might just be doing something very special. I'm not going to go that far just yet, but this guy's already got special written all over him. And the final rookie, linebacker Jack Campbell. I've said it before, I'll say it again. I was a very, very high proponent on Jack Campbell. He performed exceedingly well in college, and I was so ecstatic when the Lions drafted him. But I can tell you this right now, there were a lot of Lions fans that didn't like the idea, and I know that Woodward Sports, particularly Braylon Edwards, was not happy that we drafted him because he was so adamant that Jack Campbell was going to be a bust. He was too slow to play in the NFL, and I still remember the clip where the commissioner announced that the Lions were drafting Jack Campbell. Braylon Edwards just sat there stunned. He couldn't believe his ears, and he knew that he was going to have to hear about it from the end of his days because he was so against Jack Campbell, and then Brad Holmes goes out and drafts him. And good reason for it, too, because, again, Jack Campbell yesterday had a sack. He had a tackle for a loss. He had a QB hit, and he had 6 tackles, 3 of which were for solo tackles. Again, you have a guy that is already proving to be a valuable part of that linebacking core and a valuable part of this defense. He's able to get tackles behind the line for a loss. He's able to get sacks. He's able to hold his own in the NFL as a rookie. And when you have the ability to learn at your own pace and not get thrown straight to the wolves immediately because Derek Barnes is playing very well, and Alex Anzalone is playing very well, and Rodrigo's playing very well, it allows Jack Campbell to learn at a slower pace instead of just literally having a fire hydrant turned on and stuck down his throat. That's my whole point. Jack Campbell has already shown from when he got drafted that, yes, this guy is the real deal. Yes, he can play at a high level. Yes, he can go out on the field and be that field general linebacker. Is it going to be instantaneous? No, it's not. But he has the ability to learn, and the investment is already starting to pay off, which is exactly what all of these rookies are doing. Whether it's Gibbs, whether it's freaking Brian Branch, whether it's Sam LaPorta, whether it's Jack Campbell, all 4 of them went out yesterday and they performed at a high level of which that if we don't have those rookies, we don't win that game. And instead of being potentially 2-1, we're talking now 1-2, or dare I say maybe even 0-3. Because, again, going back to the Kansas City Chiefs game, without Brian Branch and that pick 6, we don't win that game. And there's a lot of other guys that have performed along the way. That's my whole point. Again, that game yesterday against the Atlanta Falcons, that right there was an unending, undying testament, an absolute catalyst, if you will, that once again showed the brilliance, the absolute mastery, the absolute just pure dominance that Brad Holmes has shown as a GM for not only for the entirety of the NFL, but specifically for the Detroit Lions. And that's now what we as Lions fans get to look forward to every freaking draft, is him potentially finding diamonds in the rough, making great trades, finding good players, and continuing to build this roster for years and years to come. And I'm telling you this right now, as we continue to go down this journey, these rookies that we got last year, they're already performing, they're going to perform even better. The rookies that we got last year are going to perform even better. And the rookies the year before that are going to continue to perform even better. This is what I'm talking about. It's those building blocks, and it's just getting better and better and better, stacking one on top of itself for each continual year. And I cannot wait. The Lions are going to do something really good this year. I don't know if it's going to be something really special, but if not this year, I'm willing to bet next year. But again, This is what happens when you have a good GM that knows what to look for in the draft, and you have good rookies that are already returning on investment. And that's exactly what we've got, and I couldn't be more ecstatic about what we have. But with that having been said, folks, I think I've driven home the point. I think I have made my point rather succinct and rather clear. So I'm just going to say thank you all for watching yet another episode of MCM, Motor City Mania. If by all means you like the content, I highly encourage y'all, please, to make sure you watch the next episode that's coming at the end of this one. I also encourage y'all, if you like the content, to please do one of these 3 things or do all 3 of them. It's even better. Like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. If by chance you subscribed in the past or you just subscribed, I highly encourage y'all, if you forgot to do so at the time or you haven't done so just yet, make sure you hit that bell notification icon that's at the bottom of the page so that way you never miss any more content that I push out. Let's keep getting that subscriber count up. Let's keep getting more people in to have good, lively, intellectual discussion about our Detroit Lions. I also encourage y'all, please share this content with your Lions friends and family members. Share it here on YouTube, share it on Twitter, share it on Facebook, share it everywhere and anywhere that you can with everybody and anybody that you can. And with that having been said, folks, again, I just want to thank you all for your view and your patronage and your support. Hopefully you guys become a subscriber today, and hopefully you keep on this journey with me and MCM and the rest of the family. And with that having been said, folks, I just want to say God bless, thank you for all that you do, and until the next time we meet, I'll see you all in the next episode.